Hey everyone, Stephen Lowisz here with GTM Secrets. Everything sales, marketing, RevOps, you name it. A lot of it's focused on demand gen. And I already told Rachel Weeks, who I have on the line here, God bless her because she is a marketer in HR. So I think we're going to have a fun conversation here talking about demand gen, positioning, etc. But Rachel, I don't want to steal your thunder. So if you don't mind, give a little bit of context and background on yourself.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for having me, Stephen. I really appreciate the opportunity, and I'm looking forward to this conversation. I'm currently the Vice President of Marketing for MP Wired for HR, and we provide software solutions as well as HR consulting and recruiting for small to medium-sized businesses all across the U.S. This is not my first stint in HR tech. I've actually had quite a few different stints with different types of technologies that we're marketing and selling into HR tech, HR people. And one of the reasons I really love it is because I do love HR people. They're people. They like to talk to people. They like to get to know you and ask questions. So I've found that, quite inspiring throughout my career and, really exciting to be able to apply, marketing programs and expertise to that industry.
Now, as we were talking a little bit before, the first 5 years of my career were at a HR and talent acquisition consulting company. So got to work with CHROs and heads of TA and whatnot at like ESPN, Intuit, etc. Now, but that lends to my first question. I don't know how much our experience aligns. Are you targeting more SMBs, enterprise, both? What does that look like?
Throughout my career, I've primarily targeted the SMB market, focusing on more than 50 employees, but less than 5,000 employees.
Okay.
So it's a pretty broad range. You're going to find obviously very significant differences in companies with 50 to 100 or even 200 people than you are to companies with 5,000 people. But that's also tends to be a limit in terms of the scale of the requirements of the organization and the HR team itself. So that's what I've always considered, my sweet spot.
Makes sense. So with that, in my experience, again, it's anecdotal. HR is very relationship based, very skeptical. I mean, think about HR, they're guardians for the company. Let's not get sued. Let's bring in the right people, etc. Right? It's transitioned a lot, but the core of HR back in the 30s was, how can we not get sued? That's obviously a vast overgeneralization. I recognize that. But they're very, again, relationship-focused people. Now, I know that you ran your own agency or consulting at one point. A lot of it was focused on branding. You also have a ton of experience in demand gen. So I want to get tactical in a second, but at a high level, for niche, more relational driven type of verticals like what you're doing, how do you blend the right balance of demand gen and brand focus when you may not have 1,000 people on your marketing team like a big company?
Yeah, that's a really good question, Stephen. And a lot of it depends on the organization and what their goals are, what their current position is in the market. I've joined companies that are already market leaders. So they have great brand awareness, and obviously you want to continue to maintain that. But then you can turn your focus into developing specific content or messaging. Maybe that's going to reposition the company or elevate the company within the market that you're already selling to. You're investing obviously in growth for both new business as well as client expansion. So, that's how I would approach a company that has a strong level of brand awareness, when I arrive and where I would focus. I've also been at companies that, don't have a significant amount of brand awareness, or maybe they even struggle with their brand awareness due to, changes over the course of time. And so in that case, we're making investments specifically there so that people know who we are, what we do, and why we're even talking to them. And then you can focus on, all right, what types of programs are we going to run, for growth and client expansion and all of that? Because if they don't know who you are, that makes it really difficult to even start to have a conversation.
When it comes to brand awareness a lot of people boil it down to post on LinkedIn and maybe go to a conference. How do you guys, and whether it's at your current company, MP, or prior, what are some of the strategies that you've used at a tactical level to build brand awareness?
Absolutely. I've always been a firm believer in integrated marketing. There isn't just one channel.
Yeah.
So, yeah, you definitely want to have a strong presence on LinkedIn. You want to be consistent in your posting. You want to post content that adds value to your audience so that they will engage with you and they will continue to follow you. You also want to be at the trade shows. We suffered during COVID, obviously, with live
Mhm.
events and people not being able to get out. But live events are back in full force. And, I'm still talking to people this year who've said, it's my first live event since COVID. So it's taken a couple years, to
Yeah.
really get people back into it. But, nothing replaces the opportunity to have face-to-face conversations because they're very memorable. So, I truly believe in events, being a strong part of that marketing mix. But then you also have to identify other places where your audience exists. Do you want to partner with media companies that are targeting HR professionals and delivering content to them? Do you want to contribute your content to other websites that publish content? So, not only do you get that great benefit of SEO backlinks, but, you're also expanding your reach and, showing who you are to more people. I'm a huge fan of webinars. I think, I've always had success engaging the HR audience with webinars that focus on topics that they need to know to do their jobs. So what's going on in the current, compliance environment? We've had a lot of things this year, specific to pay transparency and family leave and the Affordable Care Act. And HR professionals, need to stay up on that stuff, otherwise they will get their companies in trouble. So again, I'm a believer in integrated marketing. I believe you need to be on every possible platform, including podcasts, because no one platform appeals to all people. If you market to your audience and you know that you can reach them on 8 different platforms, you're probably only going to reach each person on 1 or 2, or if you're lucky, maybe 3 of them. So everybody has different preferences as far as the way they consume content. And so that's why it's really important as a marketer, to make sure that you're really kind of spreading out
Mhm.
across the different channels.
Makes sense. Now, HR has its own lingo, just like tech does, just like finance does, et cetera, right? You have cost per hire, requisition, ETS, et cetera. The list goes on. Do you find it more helpful to keep your language and your brand awareness more general? Or do you find that if you're speaking to HR, it's important to talk in HR lingo?
We absolutely do our best to talk, in HR terms. And I'm not sure I necessarily use the word lingo. I mean, of course, acronyms are prevalent, in every organization.
Yes.
So I think that's probably what you're leaning towards. And yes, we'll talk about FMLA and ACA and,
Right.
the other letters that, people in the audience know what they are, but, other people outside of that wouldn't. But what I think is really the most important thing, whether you're talking to HR people or, whomever your target audience is you have to give them something that they need. You have to, it has to be about them. It can't be about, you as a marketer or as a seller, because that's not what they're going to engage with. At my current company, we sell payroll solutions as part of our software suite. Guess what? Everybody needs payroll. I don't have to tell anybody why they need payroll.
Right.
The most important thing is that our target audiences knows that MP is available to help with their payroll when they have a problem, when they need better service, when they need, a more effective partner.
Right.
That in our case is also delivering HR services to help them with some of those compliance and regulatory issues. So I'm really all about, the giving and it's got to be about them. It's not about us. I don't need to tell everybody what features we have in our payroll solution because if we didn't have all the features, it wouldn't work and we wouldn't even be here. So, it's really got to be about what's going to be interesting to the audience and make them think, oh, MP, I really learned something important from them. And I want to switch payroll providers, so I'm going to call it. So that's, kind of how it's working for us right now.
Yeah, I think that's really important. I think that the terms or acronyms, I'll use that instead of lingo, are really important. And I think one of the things that you alluded to was, and I've harped on this a few times in different episodes, it's selling impact of what you do, not how you do it. A feature is a how. When people think, communicate value, they think features and that's value. Well, that's not the case. Like, I sell a technical product to marketers that are sometimes technical, sometimes not. HR is not typically super technical unless they're in like HRIS. CFOs are not often technical, etc. So being able to bring that down to a human level and explain the impact, I think, is probably the biggest challenge that everyone faces, especially in the SaaS or technical world as a whole. Here's my question for you. So we talked about brand awareness. What are some of the best channels that you use specifically for the demand gen side of the equation?
Well, I definitely don't think that brand awareness and demand gen are mutually exclusive, right? They have to power each other and they really amplify each other. So a lot of it comes down to not necessarily just the channel, but, what are you doing with that channel? I would say the two most successful platforms, at my current company, but also, going back even over the last 10 years, is live events. We talked about that, especially HR people, they want to connect with other people. They're very curious. I feel like and I was at a trade show a week or so ago, and I feel like when HR people ask you questions, they really care. They really want to hear the answer, and they, are inclined to think, well, now that I know more about this person, what can I do to help them? So, within their organizations, they're trying to solve the business challenges and the personnel challenges and, all the other issues that they have to deal with internally. And then they also have to think about, like, well, what am I doing, though, for my external audience as well? So live events, again, we're generating brand awareness because we're there. We have a presence, people who know who we are. But we're also generating demand by engaging in those conversations and, understanding each other's challenges. We have to ask questions too. What's your biggest challenge so that I can tell you how we, can potentially help solve. And then the other is webinars. From a thought leadership perspective, that's really how you build brand. But you also have to be aligned to, specific challenges and issues that are going on, right now. So I think I already mentioned, like, pay transparency, big, huge issue that came about this year, specifically in Massachusetts. To be honest, I'm not sure if it's national. But specifically in Massachusetts, there's all these new pay transparency laws. We did a webinar, to give our audience an overview of the laws that they're going to have to follow now. We had the highest registration and attendance of any webinar that we've had this year from both clients and prospects. And now we can turn those conversations about helping ensure that you understand what you have to follow as far as these new pay transparency laws go. But then also, how is your technology supporting them? What can our technology do to help support you that you might not know the technology can help you with? So that's how you turn something that could be initially positioned as a brand awareness channel into also a demand gen channel.
Now, with those webinars, is it mostly email, organic, and social that you drive traffic from, or are you doing paid ads?
We actually are like a purely organic model right now. So email is a really powerful channel for us. Social is a really powerful channel for us as well.
Now, I'll drive one step down from that. When it comes to building that email list, how did you guys do that if you aren't spending on ads?
Well, events, are a really good way to build your database. You're meeting a lot of people at events. Some organizations are still getting people to opt in so that they can actually provide you with the list of registrants and attendants. We do some paid types of partnerships, just not specifically ads. Sure. So, I've been successful at my current company as well as others, identifying media partners who are also targeting our audience. So, essentially in the old days, it was magazines. Now we call them media partners. But, there are organizations out there whose, their business model is to provide content and provide content to that audience so that then they draw the audience to them Well, if I speak or sponsor at at their organization's webinar, then I'm engaging with a whole new audience, and getting them into our community so that we can market to them through our database marketing efforts.
Makes sense. Makes perfect sense. Now, switching tangentially, what are some of your favorite tools, whether you're using now or previously in your MarTech stack?
That's a really great question. My stack right now is pretty lean. So my favorite tool is our email marketing tool, which is Salesforce Marketing Cloud, also known as Pardot.
Yep.
Wow, I got a 2 thumbs up for Marketing Cloud.
I just signed a 5-year contract with them. I'll take Salesforce over HubSpot any day.
All right. Well, that's a really, really interesting position. I'm so excited to hear that. I've used HubSpot. I've used Marketo. Really whatever, tool, you want to use in terms of the talent that you have in your organization and what they like. Email continues to be very, very effective. What you can't do is, though, just blast an email out to your whole entire database and expect that to be effective. One of the things I've done, over the years is really try to transition the position from email marketing to database marketing, because you've got to be strategic about how you use your database. And it's not just, creating an email on the platform and sending it out to everybody, but it's who within our database are we trying to target with this campaign? What are we giving them? What's in it for them? And then what's the call to action? And that can vary, depending on a lot of things. Maybe we do specific campaigns to higher up in the enterprise. We may do campaigns to only the 500 plus companies, for example. So email is really effective for that. Consequently, we might also do a small business, campaign. But there's lots of different ways you can segment your audience by products that you're using. You can take a look, use intelligence within your organization, and, AI can potentially help with this. If somebody attended these 5 webinars, what do you think that means they're most interested in? I don't know that you need AI to do that, but that's an example of a prompt that you could use. And so you follow the trends of the people within the organization that are all gravitating towards the same types of webinars or the same messaging. And then we know how we can go in and approach them, in sales on a one-to-one basis, from what we've learned about marketing. I also mentioned AI, which is definitely one of our favorite tools across the organization. We're using ChatGPT, Gemini, Claude, however you pronounce them. And they're all a little bit different. And so just like an email marketing platform, you find the one that's the best fit for you, and integrate that, into really everything that you do. So I have a very, very long wish list of technologies that, I've always wanted to incorporate into my MarTech stack. I've tended to focus on my career on smaller, emerging companies and brands. And so we often have to run more lean. But I'm always out there, trying to check out and stay informed of, the newest technologies. And, so when I get that chance someday, I've got something, that I'm ready to plug into my stack.
But before Identity Matrix, which is a MarTech company, so I get to cheat.
Yeah.
I ran a RevOps agency where I dealt with clients that had far better tech than I could afford. So I get it. I can nerd out on it all day long, and my wish list is long, same as you.
Yeah.
One thing I do want to note, and Rachel, I think you're probably familiar with the difference, but for those listening that don't, there's Marketing Cloud in Salesforce, and there's Marketing Cloud Account Engagement, aka Pardot. Marketing Cloud is a giant heap of garbage. Never buy it. It is the worst platform Salesforce has ever put out. Pardot, on the other hand, is wonderful. I love it. I use it every darn day. So I'm with you there, Rachel.
Great. Well, thank you for correcting me. Yes, it's the engagement piece of it that we use every day as well.
It's funny, though. I'm a Salesforce partner and a HubSpot partner, but I'm a Salesforce partner, and even their reps still call it Pardot. Yeah. Saying Marketing Cloud Account Engagement is just way too long. So I think that, Salesforce knows how to brand, but I think they may have goofed that one up. Mm-hmm. Here's my next question for you. What do most get wrong about B2B demand gen? And I'm actually going to start that with, you mentioned integrated marketing. I agree with that. what is demand gen? How would you define it? Because I don't think anybody actually agrees on what it is.
That's a really good question. One of the things that I've said throughout my career, especially as a leader, is that marketing and sales have to operate as a unified growth team.
Yeah.
If you want to be effective, marketing and sales cannot operate in parallel. They cannot work in silos. They really have to be unified. And so when I think of demand gen, I think of how are we going to generate revenue?
Yep.
So it's not just the top of the funnel. I mean, yeah, I have to pay attention to the top of the funnel because I have to know how much is going into it. And we call those marketing created leads, MCLs.
Yep.
And then we need to know, well, of those leads, which ones are really qualified so that we can create a model that goes back to how many opportunities we need to generate in order to hit our revenue target. So there's a lot of buzz right now on LinkedIn and, really all over the place. The MQL is dead. The MQL is dead. I frankly don't believe that. I just think that MQL, frankly, has gotten a bad rap because the Q has been ignored. Marketing qualified lead is not every single person who comes in at the top of the funnel just because they have an HR title or whoever your target audience is. So I think the MQL has really gotten a bad rap. And that's why, like I said, it's really important to think about the MCL. What percentage of MCLs convert to MQLs?
Yep.
And then what percentage of those are actually converting to opportunities? So I think the biggest mistake, I mean, you asked me the definition of demand gen, but, I think going back to that, the biggest mistake is not focusing on the fact that you're all in it together to generate revenue. And that while tactically you have to measure, each step along the way because it is a model, everything's based on math. But that's not the end game. And marketers cannot stand up when, sales doesn't make their target and say, well, but I generated as many MQLs as I said I was going to. Nobody cares. That's, again, another reason why the MQL is getting a bad rap. It's did the MQL convert to an opportunity and then did that opportunity close? And so, I think that's the biggest mistake that marketers make to align with your question about how do I define demand gen?
I'll add 2 notes to that. I agree with everything that you said. One is on LinkedIn, everything's dead. Cold calling's dead, email's dead, social's dead. Everything is dead.
Yeah.
It's how you do it, not what you do, at least in my strong opinion. The second piece is I think people focus too much on volume in demand gen, and they're not looking at their customer acquisition costs. Well, if I'm in marketing, I'm just going to put that on sales and not have anything to do with it. Your leads are not created equal. There's no equality in leads. Which ones are qualified? What's your cost per opportunity, your cost per connection, etc. So I like that term MCL a lot. It's also what's the cost of each one of those, because the cheapest lead source may not be the most profitable lead source, etc. And to your point, if sales and marketing are working together as they should, which is why you see such an emergence of chief revenue officers that own both, then you really should be looking at the cost per, not just the volume. I can drive leads all day. Doesn't mean a thing.
Yeah, I agree. And I mean, it depends on the culture of the organization, but all marketing teams, we obviously need to be agile, right? I mean, there's so many things that change on a daily basis. You've got industry challenges, you've got competitive pressures, you've got client demands. Then, to your point, the pressures within the business to deliver pipeline and revenue, to manage customer acquisition costs, and all those things. But at the same time, we also need to be patient. And so, marketing leaders really have to, figure out how that balance is going to work between being agile and also being patient. Because not all activities are going to yield immediate results. And each activity, has to have a goal, but those goals might not be the same. Because like you said, not every lead created is created equal. And so sometimes you're going to go to an event exclusively for brand awareness. Other times you're going to go to an event to focus more on demand gen. Same goes for anything that you're doing, via email marketing or online marketing. It doesn't mean that the channel doesn't work. it means you have opportunities to tweak the way you do things, within that channel. Then you collect enough data, just as anyone would. If you're doing a survey, you have to have a sample size that's going to be large enough to be representative to make, a sound decision. You can't just go out and do a survey and, as soon as the first response comes in, say, okay, I'm going to change my strategy because this is what one person said. So it really is a balance of, not only executing against those challenges, but then also educating, other executives and leaders within the company, this is why I'm doing it this way. And this is why we need to be patient. And this is what I'm going to change. But, we're always going to test and measure. And, you need statistically valid sample sizes in order to be able to make the right decisions and not just be hasty and run every time something doesn't immediately look like the result that you thought that you might achieve.
Well, I think we're very tolerant and patient in B2B sales. We all understand that there is a sales cycle and nothing's going to happen immediately, especially with higher ACV type clients. But to your point, in marketing, we expect everything right here, right now, every single time. B2B tech in particular, or professional services, it takes a lot of trust building, brand awareness, etc. That takes time. But I think we get into the mindset of direct response marketing. Well, if you're not selling a $99 or less widget, that just doesn't work. You're not selling to a consumer. You're selling to a business that needs to get budget approval. If that person signs off and it turns out to be a fail, you've hurt their reputation in the company, etc. And it's all subconscious, but that's what people subconsciously are thinking about. So yeah, it takes more time.
Yeah,
I'm as impatient as it gets, like off the charts. It's been a learning curve, realizing that just like a sales cycle, I need to focus on the fact that there's a marketing cycle or whatever term you want to put on it. I fully agree with you, Rachel. Where is the best place for people to connect with you? And I bet you're going to say LinkedIn.
Yeah, I am going to say LinkedIn. Absolutely. Thank you. I think it's Rachel-Weeks/in is what most of, the URLs for LinkedIn start with. But obviously you can search and you can find me. And I love connecting with other marketing leaders and HR leaders. It helps me stay connected, obviously, to what's going on in the HR industry, what their challenges are. But then, of course, what's the latest in marketing. This has been a big year. I've said it a lot recently that I think the changes we've gone through as both marketers and sellers have, been as big as they've ever been since COVID. I had a group meeting in the office yesterday, and I said, okay, everybody, be honest with me. Who answers your phone when an unknown number calls? And the only people that raised their hand were two sales guys who said, I'm answering to anybody because I could sell to them. And I said, great. I'm glad that that's how you answered that question. But if the people that we're trying to call are just like us and they're not answering their phones, then we have to figure out other ways to engage with them. All the research is telling us that people are essentially doing the majority of their research and getting really close to making decisions before they even engage with a vendor. So, it's kind of like that picture that you always see with the iceberg, that you can only see the tip of the iceberg, but then what's beneath the water is huge. That's what the buying cycle is like now. Everything's happening underwater. And then when they emerge to contact you, which is what you hope, and that's why you do all of your brand awareness and demand generation activities, is so that they come to you, then you can start selling.
Very true. Side tangent, unknown numbers, yeah, they're not getting answered. But I almost find it more irritating when people use local presence when calling. It's like, so I'm in Detroit. There's a couple, or Detroit Metro. There's a couple big area codes, but they cover very wide ranges. So I get a call from a city that I know is in the middle of nowhere. I know they're playing games. It's dishonest. It just rubs me the wrong way. And I'm a sales guy through and through. So those don't get answered either. Call from your real number.
Yeah.
Rachel, I think that's super insightful, super helpful. I encourage everyone to go connect with Rachel. Again, Rachel Weeks on LinkedIn, but really appreciate the time here.
Thanks a lot. I appreciate it too. It was fun.